Hello everyone! Today we will be making tuna pizza. A very unusual way of assembling such a pizza. This is one of my favorite pizzas. I advise and recommend it to everyone. The recipe makes 2 pieces. We will start the pizza by preparing the dough. I will use the simplest and tastiest dough as a base in my opinion. This is my favorite dough, I make it often. So, yeast, dry salt, sugar. I add them to the flour and mix it all together. Now I add water here, I make it with water, I don't add eggs or anything else. And I knead the dough. We transfer the dough to the table, as it's already difficult to mix in the container. And we knead the dough by hand, so it forms very quickly. You need to knead it for about 10 minutes. If you have a dough mixer, it will be much faster, about 2 minutes. Well, today I decided to do it by hand. The dough should not stick to your hands. I usually gather the dough into a bowl and wash my hands. And then with clean hands, I finish kneading the dough. Then the dough doesn't stick to your hands at all. If your dough sticks to your hands, add a tablespoon of flour like this. But usually this proportion is enough. However, it all depends on your flour. If it really sticks to your hands, add more flour. It depends on the flour itself, so I can't calculate it by grams either. Here I provide such a proportion. I do this all the time. Now I take regular vegetable oil, 30 ml. You can use olive oil. I pour it like this onto the table, onto the dough, and I knead until the oil is absorbed. In total, it takes me 10 minutes. I knead the dough for 5 minutes and in the oil for another 5 minutes. I want to show you the process. Look, the oil, the main mass, has practically all been absorbed. I have a greasy mat left, greasy hands. And the dough itself, you see, has such a shiny appearance. I knead on the mat until all the oil is absorbed. And the dough doesn't gather from the mats, but the dough becomes more matte. This takes about 5 minutes. So quickly in 10 minutes, my dough is ready. Well, that's practically it. The dough turns out very elastic, smooth. So it's very different. If you mix water with oil, and knead the dough like that, or incorporate the oil into an already prepared piece of dough. I prefer the second method. That's how I prepare the dough. I like it better both in taste and in working with it. So look, that's basically it. The dough turned out more matte. I gathered all the oil. This is the piece of dough I have ready. Now we make a ball out of it, like this. Wrap it in plastic wrap and set it aside to rise. This can take an hour to an hour and a half, up to 2, depending on the room temperature. To make it rise faster, turn on the oven to about 150 degrees. Open the door, place the dough on a board on the door. Just don't forget to cover it, and it will rise quickly this way. While the dough is rising, we'll prepare all the toppings. So I'll be spreading tomato sauce on the pizza. I will prepare it based on ketchup. I like some kind of sweet, tasty ketchup. You can use barbecue sauce, whichever you prefer. You can choose a spicy one. You can add any spices to your taste. I add only 2 things. That's ground pepper and spices. Italian herbs, a teaspoon. But you can add something spicy here if you like. So look, we put it all in here. Mix it. And our base is ready. Now, I will use green olives. They can be replaced with capers. It's a matter of personal preference. I cut 1 olive into approximately 3 parts. Adjust the number of olives to your liking. Some people like more, some less. But approximately, I use up to 8 pieces per pizza. From this amount of dough, I get those pizzas. I take cherry tomatoes, cut them in half. You can cut them into 4 parts. You can just use regular tomatoes, slice them thinly or into rings. I take 1 medium-sized red onion, cut it very carefully in half, and slice it thinly and evenly into half rings. Half an onion per pizza. Place the onion in a small container and I separate it into strips like this. I will marinate the onion a little. I really like marinated onion on tuna pizza, but it's optional. If you don't like it, you don't have to do it. But I think that's where all the flavor is. Pour 200 ml of water over the onion and 20 ml of 9% vinegar. Set it all aside. And while we prepare everything else, the onion will marinate. Chop 2 sprigs of green onion. Green onion can be replaced with any herbs, like dill or parsley. But with green onion, it's very tasty. I like it. Try tuna and green onion. Now, we just need to grate the cheese. I use mozzarella cheese. I really like it, so I grate it on a coarse grater. It stretches very well. In general, mozzarella for pizza is just amazing. My dough has risen. It took less than an hour. I very carefully turned on the oven and it rose extremely well indeed. So look, the dough is absolutely no longer oily. If we put it in oily, now it's nicely risen warm. So this piece of dough is enough for 2 pizzas. The dough needs to be kneaded just a little bit, like this. When you start kneading, it stops sticking to your hands. All right, now, I divide all the dough into 2 parts. So where is my super knife? You can immediately take 1 pizza and then the second. This dough can be easily frozen in the freezer. It sits there quite calmly. Well, who makes just 1 pizza? That's just funny. So make 2 right away. I will bake in a special pizza pan which I bought at the markets. It's like this with holes. There's also one without holes, flat, and it will do for pizza. In principle, you can just bake on a large baking sheet. So here I have a 29 centimeter diameter table. I sprinkle it with flour and begin rolling out the dough. If you are not using a special form like I am, but instead are preparing it in a regular large baking tray from the oven, prepare it all from the dough at once because that's how it will turn out. You will roll out all the dough over the entire tray and you will end up with one huge pizza. So look, I have rolled it out. Now, here's a very important nuance. We transfer the dough like this. Sprinkle a little flour in the mold. Transfer the dough back here. I will have some leftover dough. I will use it for the second piece of pizza. So look, you don't need to stretch the dough. You need to kind of scrunch it back with your hands. You got it, right? So that it isn't stretched. That's why I do it like this. And it sits there calmly. Just like that, not stretched. Like this, look. Now take a pizza cutter and trim the edge closely, pressing the cutter against the baking sheet. If you don't have such a cutter, just use a regular knife. I always make sure that the dough doesn't hang down because whatever hangs will burn. I need the dough to just rest on the edge of the baking sheet, like this on top, see, like this. So, well, that's basically it. These edges will go into the second piece of pizza. Well, that's basically all the tricks. There's too much tomato base. Don't add more. I add about 2 tablespoons. And I spread it in a thin layer over the entire baking sheet. If you add more, your dough might turn out wet. Why? I do it purely for taste. Instead of a tomato base, you can lay out sliced tomatoes in circles. But since it's not the season now, I do it like this with ketchup. And in general, according to my taste and all my family members, we prefer it more when there's a base like this, not tomatoes, but rather a paste of some sort. Generously and liberally sprinkle with cheese. Most of all, pizza with tuna. I liked it. We were once in a restaurant and they served us pizza with tuna. Oh, what a pizza it was. I watched how it was made and started cooking it at home using the same principle. Because you see, we usually put everything on the pizza right away, sprinkle it with cheese on top and put it in the oven. But here, the assembly principle is different. And I really liked it. And I want to recommend it to you. Give it a try. And not just for tuna, but for other toppings as well. So look, I use about 250 grams of mozzarella for 1 pizza. Look, we've spread the cheese. Now, we take the tuna. I use at least 200 grams of tuna for 1 pizza. This kind of canned, jarred tuna, you can use 250 grams. I break it into small pieces. And I spread it over the cheese like this. Look, I had 200 grams of tuna in the can. I didn't even use it all. I used about 180 grams. You see, I won't add all of it. No need for too much. Now, what I also add are tomatoes. And I will bake it like this. Everything else is served on the finished pizza. So look, the tomatoes, I really love when they are nicely roasted. You don't need too many of them either. Look, this is how I do it. How it smells. Yum, 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 yum. You can even use it raw. So look, 180 degrees, 200 if your oven doesn't burn. But it's better at 180 to ensure it doesn't burn. At 200 degrees, it cooks instantly. But if the oven burns, the edges will get burnt. It cooks in about 10 minutes, no more. I watch the cheese to ensure it melts well and the edges to be a light golden color. But if you like crispy edges, keep it in longer. But the pizza is thin, so it doesn't burn either. While the pizza is in the oven, we drain the onions like this in a sieve to let them drain completely. So it has already softened nicely. You don't need to mash it too much, but I press it slightly with my hand to remove all the liquid. Like this. If you mash it too much, it will turn into mush. So my beauty is ready. Now I place the onions on the finished pizza and I lay them out just like that. In a circle. I sprinkle them, olives, capers, whatever you like. You can use 2 types of olives, but I particularly like these little green ones the most. Sprinkle a bit of green onion and that's it. And now we cut it. So look, what a beauty. I recommend you try such a pizza. In general, guys, try this version with pickled onions and olives. And all of this is added to the pizza when it's already done. Try doing it this way with bacon. It's very tasty, guys. With tuna, it's just amazing. 2 pizzas, I'm telling you right away, won't be enough. I hope I've tempted you all with such a pizza. Be sure to make it and leave comments. I think you will really like it. Really, really, you can also add a spoonful of sugar to the pickled onions. But that's to taste. Red onions are already somewhat sweet, so I don't do that. In general, that's all. Catch the aromas and the pizza itself on your table. And we're off to have lunch. Thank you for being with me today. Like, share this video, subscribe to my channel. Love you all. Take care.